So how did you go from the financial world, sitting behind a computer and all the numbers on, accounting and all that to then, running the Miracle Hope Foundation and helping people, get their lives? Because you think somebody like that would be from the medical field.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, for sure, I never thought, I'd be sitting here running a nonprofit, helping heal our veterans and helping cancer warriors fight their journey. But for me, it actually started out of my own journey. So in 2017, I was in a car accident and severely herniated my L5S1. So at the time, I had some dear friends that I had done a leadership class with, and they said, hey, push your surgery off and come down to our hospital in Tijuana. And I said, I'm going to tell my family I'm going to push my surgery off and come to a cancer hospital in Tijuana when I've been working on a lawn chair in my living room for a month. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Get your butt down here. Best decision I made. But through that journey, I just fell in love with the hospital because the cancer patients there, I mean, it was such a magical healing place. Just God's presence was all throughout there. You're watching these cancer people, just they would walk in a wheelchair, kind of dissipated. And you could see they're, knocking on death's door. And within a week or two of the nutrition and the protocols and everything they're doing, they're walking again. The color's back in their face. They're coming in the hyperbaric chamber on their own with me. And I just am watching healing happen in front of my eyes. And I was just blown away. Additionally, also, I left there and got rid of my sciatic pain in 2 weeks. I actually did the Gerson protocol. So I did the Gerson protocol. I did the hyperbarics. I'm doing PMF, the infrared sauna. I basically did all the healing therapies that the cancer patients did minus the cancer regimen. In addition, actually did some ozone injections into the muscles of my spine and got rid of my sciatica pain. So for me, I was so grateful to avoid surgery, to go through there. I just kept going back just because I was just so grateful. And I would go down there and I kind of joked that I was like the only home-cooked meal, that I home-cooked meal. But during those times, we would sit around a table, we eat dinner. And so here are, these 3 guy friends of mine who were, fighting the war against cancer. And they're not even from the medical field. 2 of them from jiu-jitsu world, 1 of them from internet marketing. You're like, wait a minute, you guys are the ones, just so passionate. But I remember us sitting around that table. And at the time, 95% of the patients that were calling couldn't afford to get there and couldn't take the time off to get there.
Right.
And so your heart's breaking listening to this every day. And all of us in the leadership program we had been in, during that leadership program, there's a week long where everybody has to raise $2,500 for a charity. And you're doing it in 1 week, and everybody's like, no, we're not going to do it. Well, once you did it once, you're like, oh, this is so easy. Like, people really want to help. When you enroll them in something, people want to be part of something. People want to help. So we said, man, what would it be like to be able to help these patients just fight for their life and do fundraising and be able to fight for themselves? And mind you, at the time, I'm still running my financial practice. I'm, doing my own healing through there. So it just kind of came a dream, and we just but the seed was planted. So then fast forward that journey, it was actually when they actually started bringing Nashville artists down to play for the cancer patients. And so that was one of the earliest called Hope Song. And so they were, really helping cancer patients in doing that. And then, of course, COVID hit and kind of, threw a wrench in that. So then fast forward, they start doing stem cells. And they basically said, hey, will you be one of the guinea pigs? They didn't actually say it that way. But like, hey, we're starting to do it. But I was the second back injection patient. So Scotty, the owner, was the first one. He actually asked me to go first. And I was like, I'll let you go first,
Yeah.
But so I was the second back injection patient. So at this point, I had a lot of improvement. My herniation went from an 18/10 to a 12/7 at this point, 4 years later. But I still would have massive level 10 spasms every time I would sneeze. And I would fear sneezing. I'd have to brace myself and, but also at the time I'm bubble wrapping myself. I was doing Pilates, I'm just walking, but I was scared to wear a pair of heels. I was scared to, do anything above and beyond a certain level. So it's yeah, I was out of pain, but did I really have my quality of life back? I'm not snowboarding. I'm not, doing the things that I loved. And so I was like, you know what? Absolutely, I will. So then pretty much, I think it's been within about 3 weeks of my injection that to this day, I can sneeze freely, 0 spasms. And it's the simplest thing, but someone with a back issue understands it.
Yeah.
When you talk to them, they're like, I'll be able to sneeze again? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, she'll be able to sneeze again. So that was really, the second part of it where I was just one of those friends that I was like, yeah, I want to help. I want to help however you're doing it. So then a year later, so during that journey, my father had a lung transplant. He had pulmonary fibrosis. And at the beginning of COVID has a lung transplant, but it's really interesting because every part of your story and your journey, really is, you don't piece it all together until you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, everything I've been through has prepared me for today. And, so my dad was going through that journey, and about 2 years into that journey, he gets pancreatic cancer. And so he got 2 really good years left after his lung transplant. He was a poster child for lung transplants. He soared through that, got 2 really great years.
3 blessed to get it.
Yeah, and he did. He was. And so then now he gets pancreatic cancer. And I remember calling Ed, and I remember saying like, hey, he's immune compromised. Here's what it is. And of course, in true Ed fashion, he's going to tell you, but he's not going to tell you. Right. And so he sends me a link, and it basically was like a calculator. You put in comorbidities, you put in kind of what's going on. And the calculator basically said my dad had 3 or 4 more months in that journey. And of course, I'm frustrated because I'm like, here are friends who have this great cancer hospital, but my dad was immune compromised. So in order to take in there, he had to risk rejecting his lung because everything there was immune building and he's immune suppressed. And so it's, and so it basically like, hey, we could try, but he'd have to risk rejecting his lung because he's only 2 years out. So then it was like kind of that. And so my dad was like, yeah, I'm not ready to risk my lung. You know what I mean? That had already been such a journey for him over the years. But, but through that, it's like, the Apatone, I put him on the Apatone, which really helped him. And, and also I started putting him on grass-fed beef supplements and grass-fed beef pancreas. And so he started getting a cough on his lung, and I getting grass-fed beef lung. His platelets would drop after chemo, and then I would put him on grass-fed beef platelets. And so I just kind of like started like doing stuff with him, but we actually got 14 more months out of it. And 12 out of the 14 were actually great. It was only like the last, 2 months as the body. But, so for me, I'm like, wow. I said, we got him 4 more times what theoretically he should have gotten and been immune compromised. Mm-hmm. And so, so it was such a part of my story. And so at this time, so basically the guys had said, we're really starting to get patients starting to fund each other. We're getting patients who are getting 2 extra years of life and they're bequesting money. And we don't have any way to take care of it. Like, can you help us figure that out? You know what I mean? So here I am thinking that's the financial planner. I'm just the consultant. And I'm like, yeah, let me help you find a solution. Yeah. And I start looking through like, could we use a donor advised fund? And okay, well, no, that doesn't really help because you still need the 501c3. And so initially then we found like a cancer fundraising software. And so just the journey started. And I remember still in the beginning just saying to myself, I'll just help you take care. I'll just help you, get it. And then we'll just hire a real person. We'll hire a real person to help. And really along the way, like I always say, there was 2 moments where I say God fully hooked me. And the first one was when we had another foundation reach out and ask us to help one of their veterans. He was the first responder at 9/11. And now he was getting pulmonary fibrosis.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing.
Yeah. And so that was the disease my father had before his lung transplant. So right in that moment, I'm like, you're going to tell me I could possibly help somebody's family not go through what my family went through? And so that was kind of the first moment. And, I can praise report that veteran's now 18 months out. No, barely has any remnants on his scan and has had no progression disease. And for anybody that knows that disease, that is not a reversible disease.
It's life changing, and I think how many people can help. It's amazing.
Yeah. So that was the moment when I said, the Lord hooked me and got there. But it's just now all of a sudden I'm like, and the same thing is that nonprofit that reached out to us said, will you apply for a grant? And they're in the veteran space, and so I started doing research to apply for the grant. And as I started in the research, I'm like, what? Like, this is what those who have sacrificed for our freedom and our safety are going through? You're going to tell me they're in massive amounts of pain. There's not many options for them because then it's like now they're on SSRI drugs and insomnia medications and massive amounts of painkillers and fusions and surgeries. And there just really wasn't options for them. And I was like, just this moment went off and I said, wow, stem cells will change their life. Like stem cells will actually change their life. And that's when we started the Healing Heroes program. And it's just been incredible. It's been incredible to see the results that we've had and the impact. And so, there's very many, many days that I'm like, how did I get here? Mm-hmm. And that is just really, I just laugh because it's like, there's so much of my own story, my own journey that's really made me so uniquely wired to help this fight. So it's been pretty cool.
I believe in coincidences, right? And I think it's just kind of beautiful to see, even in tragedy, right? Even in loss, how pieces can come together where you can take, that loss and pain and turn it into purpose and then for others. And you've done just that. So, kudos to you.
And for me, it's been an incredibly healing journey because I get to talk about Daddy every day.
There you go.
And one of the missions you've heard about is, one of the initiatives is I actually want to do a trial for pulmonary fibrosis. And of course, I will name it after Dad, but for me, like that to me is like, wow, you're going to tell me I can potentially help families not go through our family went through, and one of the other initiatives you and I have been talking a lot about is TBI and brain health. And, and so it's not just the veteran community, but when we look at NFL players and fighters and, in those communities, it's like that repetitiveness. And so what is the impact of stem cells on the brain and TBI in doing that? So I think that those two, are, very exciting. And so
they hold so many people hostage, but I think it's just a beautiful thing when you can take, the pain you've experienced and it can literally change the course of your life, right? And you can start to do so much for others that you really never saw coming or thought you could do. And think about all the things in front of you now that you can impact, Yeah, so I'd like to turn that question to you. Is where do you see Miracle Hub going? Where do you want this to be in the next, 2 years, 5 years? What's next?
So I have very small goals in that I would like to end soldier suicide. I would like to stop suicide. But in all honesty, though, is I really initially didn't even realize the impact we're having. And then now slowly, as we're watching him and the conversations I'm having, I'm like, I don't know the exact correlation yet, but I want to find out. What is the correlation? And my guess is it's the inflammation cytokines in the brain that we're having an impact on. And that when they're doing the stem cells, it's reducing that inflammation, which is now reducing those markers that attribute to, that brain inflammation has. So one is, I'm really curious to find out and be able to explore that. Because really, it's not just physical healing that's in my heart. It's like, I want to wholly heal mind, body, and spirit for not just our veterans, but also now you think of our cancer patients. It's a totally different population, if not stem cells. But most people don't realize, it's not just their environment. What are the toxins in their environment? What are they eating? But then there's also a whole emotional component that is very minimally explored. And so I'm really excited to see what is the impact of the therapies and treatments we're doing, and also bringing in an emotional healing component. And when those two are together, I have a feeling that we're going to really, take healing to a whole new level.
100%. And it's just kind of wild to see, how there's for cancers, specifically for cancer. It used to just be, okay, you have cancer, go do that IV therapy, and you're just chemo and you're killing yourself to kill the cancer, right? And seeing all these things that have come out recently because of courageous people, just like what they've done at CPI, at CHIPSA, and then so many other people around the world. For instance, Buddy's wife just cured herself of cancer with ivermectin.
I know.
Ivermectin. It's insane.
Yeah.
And, you hear these stories, and just the fact that there is a place, right? And unfortunately it can be in America. Crazy that even is a thing, right? But down in Tijuana, where they can, push the limits of what we know, try all kinds of new things, and really cure people, fix people, it's just, it's a breath of fresh air when you think about that, hey, as there's carcinogens and terrible things, all the food that we eat and the water, all the stuff they talk about that's in the air now, and just in even created through the pharmaceuticals we take, the vaccines that we take, just this surge in cancer that's happening in society. And it's not just like, oh, I've got cancer and it's early. People are finding cancer at stage 4, and just knowing that there's something out there that's being built, and they're trying all these new treatments with the genetics and the genomics and everything else to see how we can combat this. It's a breath of fresh air for me, because it gives me hope, not just for myself, but the people that I love. If that happens to them one day, I know where to send them,
And that's also what I'm very excited about, is really on the research side. Because really the sky is the limit. Now, we're able to be a partner because now our partner has one of the world's most advanced genomics labs. And so, like, they are being able to do genetic testing, and it's something like 8,000 markers. And so to be able to take that, because really it's, okay, great. Once someone has the fight and you want to treat them, it's great. But how do we help people before it even gets there? How do we help people be aware of what are they predisposed to? What, because sometimes it could be, are you taking vitamins that your body doesn't like? Are you eating, you know what I mean? And so to be able to have a very robust front end side diagnostic, so now we can start to collect data on that to say, okay, if someone's predisposed to this cancer genetically from their family, if they do the pre-steps now versus when they get it,
Right.
now is that going to be a game changer? And so I think really on the research side, it's like having that ability to say, hey, we can really see, hey, now here's what your body genetically is predisposed to. Now, if we change some of those factors, now can we change the trajectory, for your health? Can you change some of the environmental factors? Can you change some of the, things that you're exposed to? And I think really it's people being aware that sometimes it's the things we don't even see that's hurting us. Is it the microplastics? Is it mold in our house? Is it, there's so many little things that we don't really, people that 50 years ago didn't have to think about this.
100%. And then there's a lot of studies out now, especially since I think COVID for me was kind of, not being a doctor or a scientist, just being a pretty logical, intelligent person. COVID to me was really that wake up call for the world, right? Of, hey, wait a second, there's a lot of stuff out there that's not good for us. There's a lot of treatments out, the vaccines, there's a lot of medicines, there's a lot of things that aren't good for us. How can we combat this? Like, how can we do this in a totally different way than we've been doing before? Because what we're doing isn't working. I shouldn't get on a prescription and then end up having to take three more prescriptions because of the side effects.
Yeah, side effect of that when you're taking another one.
Right.
It's just...
How do I stop it at the source?
Yeah.
Is it my genetics? Is it external influences in my environment? And just those, it sounds so simple, but just something that simple that we weren't doing before can literally change your life. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to see that they're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pain is just a part of life. We're all born and we're going to die, and there's going to be pain and there's going to be suffering and there's going to be loss throughout that. But I think the special part about it is certain people get called to have purpose from that pain, right? And even whether it's their own pain or the pain of the people that they love the most, and to see the impact that you can have on the world from that. And I think that's what's really inspiring the most about your story is that you're doing that. You're helping change others, and you can't change what happened to to either to you or to the persons that you lost, but you can change lives for so many. And again, that's their memory carrying on. As that's how I think they always stay with you. And I did the same for my sister. I can't change her loss, but I can change other people's lives and her memory. So for you to be able to do that for your dad and through this I think is a very beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. And I love that. Taking your pain for purpose, because it's true. It's like being able to, our pain can either, we can either sit in it or we can actually use it to fuel us to make a difference.
And we can help the people that are succumbing to it, and hopefully they'll flip it to purpose one day. I think it's just everybody you touch, you never know what's going to happen, with their life and what they're going to do with it if you can get them out of that pain. Mm-hmm. Because we've been there. Yeah. So it's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you.